The coffee cup shattered like her last bit of dignity. Maya Torres stood frozen, brown liquid spreading across white marble like shame made visible. The woman in the designer suit smiled, coldly satisfied. Neither of them knew the restaurant owner was watching through the kitchen window, his hand gripping the doorframe until his knuckles turned white. What happened next would prove that sometimes justice comes from the most unexpected places. 1. Setup Scene 1. Protagonist introduction. Maya Torres was 28 years old, but her hands told the story of someone much older. The skin was dry, cracked at the knuckles from endless washing, scrubbing, serving. She'd been working at La Rosa Dorada for 3 years, ever since her mother's diagnosis turned their modest life into a desperate scramble for survival. Every morning at 5:30, Maya woke in the cramped studio apartment she shared with her mother in the industrial district. The walls were thin enough to hear neighbors arguing, loving, living. She would dress in the dark, careful not to wake Mama, pulling on the black pants and white shirt that served as her uniform. The fabric was worn thin at the elbows, but she kept it spotless. Dignity, her mother always said, costs nothing but effort. The bus ride took 45 minutes, winding through neighborhoods that grew progressively wealthier until the broken sidewalks became pristine and the chain-link fences transformed into ornamental iron. Maya would press her forehead against the window, watching the city change like a girl looking at a life she'd never touch. Just get through today, she would think, the words becoming a mantra. Just get through today and Mama gets her medication. Just get through today and maybe there's enough left for bread. She was pretty in a way that poverty tried to hide, warm brown eyes that still held kindness despite everything, dark hair pulled back in a practical bun, a smile that came easily even when her feet ached and her back screamed. The other servers liked her. The kitchen staff saved her the best table scraps. Even the manager, Mr. Castillo, had a soft spot for her reliability. But Maya knew her place. She never complained when customers were rude, never argued when her tips were small, never mentioned that she often worked through her breaks because they were understaffed. She needed this job like she needed air. Today was Friday, which meant the lunch rush would be brutal. The wealthy clientele of La Rosa Dorada expected perfection. Crystal glasses without fingerprints, plates delivered at precisely the right temperature, service that was attentive but invisible. Maya had learned to move like a ghost, anticipating needs before they were spoken. She tied her apron at exactly 6:45 a.m., checked her reflection in the staff bathroom mirror, and practiced her smile. It didn't quite reach her eyes anymore, but the customers never looked that closely. Scene 2. Antagonist introduction. Victoria Ashford was 35 and had never heard the word no without making someone regret saying it. She drove a pearl-white Mercedes, wore heels that cost more than Maya's monthly rent, and treated service workers like furniture that occasionally malfunctioned. Her husband owned 3 car dealerships. Her father had been a judge. Her children attended private schools where the uniforms cost $400, and the tuition could fund a small village. Victoria sat on charity boards and threw fundraising galas, performing generosity like a theatrical production, while treating actual struggling people with contempt. She belonged to the country club, the yacht club, the exclusive book club that never actually discussed books. Her Instagram feed was a carefully curated highlight reel of exotic vacations, designer handbags, and inspirational quotes about manifesting abundance. She had 12,000 followers who thought she was aspirational. What they couldn't see was the brittle anxiety underneath, the constant fear that she wasn't quite as important as she pretended, that her husband looked at younger women, that her friends whispered about her behind her back. So Victoria compensated by diminishing others. If she could make someone feel small, she felt larger. She had been coming to La Rosa Dorada for 2 years, always requesting table 7 by the window, always complaining about something. The water wasn't cold enough, the bread wasn't warm enough, the service wasn't fast enough. The staff dreaded her arrival. They drew straws to see who had to take her table. Today Maya drew the short straw. Victoria swept into the restaurant at noon wearing a cream-colored suit that probably required dry cleaning after every wear. Her blonde hair was professionally highlighted, her makeup flawless, her jewelry subtle but expensive. She looked successful, powerful, untouchable. She looked, Maya thought with an unexpected pang, deeply unhappy. Table 7, Victoria announced to the hostess without breaking stride, not waiting to be seated like an ordinary customer. The hostess, a college student named Rosa, caught Maya's eye and mouthed, "I'm sorry." Maya squared her shoulders, picked up her order pad, and approached the table. Scene 3. The inciting incident. "Good afternoon, ma'am.
Welcome to La Rosa Dorada.
Can I start you with something to drink?" Victoria didn't look up from her phone. "Sparkling water. San Pellegrino, not that cheap domestic garbage. Make sure the glass is actually clean this time. Last week I could see fingerprints." Maya wrote it down, her handwriting steady despite the familiar knot forming in her stomach. "Of course. I'll bring that right away. And the menu. I assume you know how to hand someone a menu." "Yes, ma'am." Maya retrieved one from the hostess stand, placed it gently on the table. Victoria snatched it without acknowledgement. In the kitchen, Maya filled a glass with San Pellegrino, held it up to the light to check for any spots, polished it once more with a clean cloth. The bartender, Jorge, shook his head sympathetically.
La bruja e mater.
The witch. The staff's nickname for Victoria. "I can handle it," Maya said, though her hands trembled slightly as she placed the glass on her tray. She returned to table 7, set the water down carefully, pulled out her pad. "Are you ready to order? Or would you like a few more minutes?" "I'm ready. I'm always ready. Some of us don't waste time." Victoria rattled off her order: Caesar salad, no anchovies, extra Parmesan but not too much, dressing on the side but make sure it's not the low-fat kind, grilled salmon cooked medium but if it's even slightly pink in the center send it back, vegetables but only the seasonal ones and make sure they're not overcooked like last time. Maya wrote everything down, repeated it back perfectly. Victoria waved her away dismissively. 20 minutes later, Maya delivered the order. She had checked it 3 times, made sure everything was exactly as requested. The plate was positioned perfectly, the vegetables arranged artfully, the salmon cooked precisely to temperature. Victoria took one bite of salad and her face transformed into disgust. "This is inedible." Maya's heart dropped. "I'm so sorry, ma'am. What's wrong with it?" "What's wrong?" Victoria's voice rose, drawing attention from nearby tables. "The dressing tastes like vinegar. The lettuce is wilted. And this?" She jabbed her fork at the Parmesan. "This is clearly not fresh." Maya knew for a fact that everything was fresh. The lettuce had been delivered that morning. The Parmesan had been grated minutes ago. But she also knew arguing was pointless. "I'll have the kitchen prepare a new one immediately." "I don't want a new one. I want competent service," which apparently is too much to ask. Victoria pushed the plate away forcefully. It slid across the table toward the edge. Maya reached out instinctively to catch it. Her hand brushed the water glass. Everything happened in horrible slow motion. The glass tipping, Victoria jerking back. The water arcing through air like liquid crystal, splashing across that cream-colored suit. The restaurant went silent. Victoria stood slowly, water dripping from her jacket, her face contorted with rage. "You clumsy, stupid girl. Do you have any idea how much this suit costs?" "I'm so sorry, I'll get towels, we'll pay for cleaning." "You'll pay? With what?" "Your pathetic little tips." Victoria's voice was venomous now, carrying across the dining room. "People like you have no business serving people like me. You're careless, incompetent, and frankly, this restaurant should be ashamed to have someone so low-class working here." Maya stood frozen, her face burning, tears threatening but refusing to fall. Around them diners whispered, stared, judged. Some looked uncomfortable. Most looked away. Nobody intervened. "Look at you. Can't even afford decent clothes. Can barely speak properly. You're probably uneducated, aren't you? No wonder you're stuck in a dead-end job, serving your betters." Victoria grabbed her designer handbag. "I'm never coming back here. And I'll make sure everyone I know hears about this disaster." She stormed out, leaving Maya standing in the wreckage of her dignity, holding an empty tray, trying to remember how to breathe. "Don't cry," she commanded herself. "Not here. Not in front of everyone." She bent to clean up the mess, her hands shaking so badly she could barely hold the towel. Scene 4. Secret observer introduced in the kitchen window, hidden behind the swinging door, Marcus Webb had watched the entire scene unfold. He was 42 years old, though most people guessed younger. Years of working in restaurants had kept him lean, constantly moving, constantly thinking. He wore the same black chef's coat as his kitchen staff, refused a separate office, insisted on starting work at dawn just like everyone else. La Rosa Dorada was his third restaurant, and the one he loved most. He'd built it from nothing 15 years ago, when this neighborhood was still transitioning, when the rent was affordable and the dream was still bigger than the reality. Now it was successful beyond his early hopes, Michelin recommended, waiting lists for weekend reservations, featured in food magazines. But Marcus had never forgotten where he came from. He'd grown up in public housing 3 miles from here, raised by a grandmother who worked 3 jobs and still made time to teach him that kindness cost nothing. He'd washed dishes at 14, worked as a line cook at 16, put himself through culinary school with scholarships and student loans that took a decade to repay. He understood struggle intimately. Watching Victoria berate Maya, he felt something crack open in his chest. Old anger, old pain, old memories of being treated like he was worthless because his shoes had holes and his clothes came from donation centers. He knew Maya. Not well, but enough. She was always early, never complained, often stayed late when others called in sick. She was gentle with the nervous new servers, patient with difficult customers, grateful for every shift. Her employee file mentioned a sick mother, a single-parent household, medical bills that were drowning her. She had never once asked for help. Marcus pushed through the kitchen door just as Maya finished cleaning up the water, her face carefully blank, her eyes determinately dry. She straightened, turned toward the kitchen, and nearly collided with him. "Mr. Webb, I'm so sorry, I'll pay for the meal, I didn't mean to." He held up a hand gently. "Maya, stop. That wasn't your fault." "But I spilled the water." She pushed the plate. "I saw everything." His voice was quiet but firm. "You did nothing wrong." Maya's facade cracked slightly. Her eyes filled. "She's a regular. If she doesn't come back, then we'll survive without her business." Marcus met her gaze steadily. "We don't need customers who treat our staff like that. You understand?" She nodded wordlessly, not trusting her voice. "Take your break. Get some air. When you come back, I want you to take table 12. They're nice people." "Thank you," she whispered. Marcus watched her walk toward the back door, her shoulders hunched, her spirit visibly bruised. Something shifted in him, a decision forming, a plan taking shape. He had resources now. Money that he'd earned through grinding work, through excellence, through refusing to compromise his standards. What was the point of success if he couldn't use it to help someone who reminded him so much of his younger self? Victoria's cruelty had been public. His response would be private, at least at first. Because Maya struck him as someone who wouldn't accept charity, who would be mortified by pity. She needed help delivered with dignity and tact. He pulled out his phone, opened his notes app and began typing. But Maya had no idea her life was about to change. She had no idea that the quiet man in the kitchen window was about to become the answer to prayers she'd stopped praying, or that the worst day of her life was actually the beginning of her transformation. SCT2. Rising Action Scene 5. Aftermath and daily struggle. Maya's hands were still shaking when she got home that night. The bus ride had been a blur, her mind replaying Victoria's words on an endless, torturous loop. Low class. Uneducated. Pathetic. The apartment was dark except for the glow of the television. Her mother, Elena, was asleep in the recliner they'd bought third-hand from a neighbor, an oxygen tank humming softly beside her. The cancer had started in her lungs 2 years ago, then spread. Treatment was a careful balance of what insurance barely covered and what they could afford out of pocket. Maya set down her purse quietly, moved to the kitchen area. Really just a counter with a hot plate and mini fridge. She opened the refrigerator. Half a gallon of milk, 3 eggs, leftover rice, wilting vegetables. She'd get paid in 2 days. They could make it stretch. She counted the tips from her apron pocket. $43. After Victoria's scene, several tables had looked at her with either pity or contempt. The lunch crowd had tipped accordingly. $43, when she needed $60 for her mother's medication refill. Don't think about it now, she told herself. Figure it out tomorrow. She made eggs and rice, ate standing at the counter too tired to sit. Through the thin wall, she could hear the neighbor's baby crying. From above, footsteps paced back and forth. The building was alive with other people's struggles, everyone trying to make it to tomorrow. Elena stirred, opened her eyes. Mija? You're home late. Extra shift, Maya lied. She hadn't mentioned being fired, hadn't mentioned Victoria, hadn't mentioned anything that would add to her mother's worry. How are you feeling? Tired. But okay. Elena's voice was weak but warm. Did you eat? Yes, Mama. Good. You worked too hard. Maya smiled, kissed her mother's forehead. Get some rest. I'll help you to bed in a minute. Later, after settling her mother for the night, Maya sat on the edge of her own bed, really just a mattress on the floor in the corner, and finally let herself cry. Quietly into her pillow so her mother wouldn't hear. She'd worked so hard. She'd been so careful. And still it wasn't enough. Maybe Victoria was right, whispered the cruel voice of exhaustion and despair. Maybe this is all you'll ever be. But then she thought of her mother's words. Dignity costs nothing but effort. Maya wiped her eyes, straightened her shoulders even though no one was watching, and made a silent promise. She would show up tomorrow. She would smile. She would keep going. Because giving up wasn't an option when someone depended on you. Scene 6. First anonymous gift. The next morning, Maya arrived at work expecting to be called into Mr. Webb's office and let go. But instead, she found a small package on her locker with her name on it. Inside was a pair of good quality non-slip work shoes, the expensive kind that didn't make your feet ache after a double shift, and a handwritten note on cream cardstock. Because everyone deserves to walk through life without pain. You are more valuable than you know. No signature. No indication of who had left it. Maya turned the box over looking for any clue. The shoes were exactly her size. They must have cost at least $100. Who would do this? And how did they know her shoe size? Rosa, the hostess, peeked into the locker room. You okay? You look confused. Someone left me shoes. Rosa came over, examined them. Nice shoes. Secret admirer. I don't know. There's no name. Well, whoever it is has good taste. Those are the kind the veteran servers buy after they can finally afford them. Rosa grinned. Maybe you have a guardian angel. Maya laughed shakily. I don't believe in angels. But she put on the shoes and they fit perfectly, and for the first time in months her feet didn't hurt by the end of her shift. And when she found a $20 bill tucked into her apron pocket halfway through the lunch rush, definitely not from any table she'd served, she started to wonder if maybe Rosa was right. That night, she bought her mother's medication with money to spare. And for the first time in weeks, she slept without the grinding anxiety of impossible mathematics. Scene 7. Observer's investigation. Marcus sat in his small office above the restaurant, scrolling through Maya's employment file on his computer. He knew it was probably inappropriate, but he told himself he needed to understand the full picture before he could help effectively. The file was sparse. Emergency contact, mother, Elena Torres. Previous employment, another restaurant that had closed down. Education, high school diploma, 1 semester of community college before dropping out. References from her previous employer praised her work ethic, reliability, kindness to customers. The address was in a neighborhood Marcus knew well. He'd lived 3 blocks away as a teenager. The buildings there were old, poorly maintained, the kind of place where people lived because they had no choice. He opened another window on his computer, pulled up a private investigation service he'd used before for employment background checks. Within an hour, he had a fuller picture. Elena Torres, 63, stage 4 lung cancer, on disability but barely covering medication costs. Medical debt totaling $78,000. Twice denied for clinical trials. Prognosis poor without aggressive treatment they couldn't afford. Maya Torres, sole caregiver, working 50-hour weeks, taking every shift she could get. No criminal record, not even a traffic ticket. She dropped out of college to care for her mother, abandoning a psychology degree she'd been pursuing with scholarships. Marcus leaned back in his chair, rubbing his face. His grandmother had died of cancer when he was 25. He remembered the helplessness, the rage at a system that made dying expensive, the desperate scramble to afford dignity in those final months. He thought about his own life now, the comfortable house, the savings account, the security he'd fought so hard to achieve. What was the point of having resources if you couldn't use them to help someone who deserved it? He picked up his phone, made 3 calls. First, to a lawyer friend who specialized in medical debt negotiation. Second, to an oncologist he'd met at a charity dinner. Third, to a service that delivered groceries anonymously. I want to help someone, he explained to each. But they can't know it's from me. Not yet. They're proud and they'd refuse charity. Can you make it look like, I don't know, a program, a grant, something institutional? Each person agreed. Marcus had built relationships in this city through years of quiet generosity, supporting causes he believed in, helping people without fanfare. Now he was calling in those connections. He looked at Maya's photo in the employee file. A terrible ID picture that still somehow captured her essential kindness in the slight upturn of her mouth, the warmth in her eyes. Hang on, he thought. Help is coming. You just don't know it yet. Scene 8. Antagonist escalates. Victoria had not let go of her humiliation. She'd told the story to everyone who would listen. Her book club, her yoga class, her husband over dinner. Each retelling grew more dramatic. The incompetent waitress, the ruined designer suit, the outrageous treatment. She posted a scathing review on Yelp, Google, Facebook, anywhere that would host her outrage. But what infuriated her most was that she actually missed La Rosa Dorada. The food was excellent. The location was convenient. And she'd built a reputation among her social circle as someone important enough to be recognized there, to have a regular table. Now she couldn't go back without looking weak. It festered in her mind like a wound. She drove past the restaurant sometimes, looking for validation of her anger. She wanted to see it empty, failing, suffering consequences for employing such terrible staff. Instead, it remained popular, vibrant, full. 2 weeks after the incident, Victoria saw Maya at the grocery store. The girl was in the produce section, carefully counting apples, putting back the bruised ones, calculating something on her phone. She looked tired but peaceful, and she was wearing new shoes. Nice shoes that Victoria recognized as expensive. Something ugly twisted in Victoria's chest. How dare this girl look content? How dare she move on as if Victoria's words hadn't mattered? Victoria approached, her heels clicking on the linoleum. Maya looked up and her face went carefully blank. "Oh, it's you," Victoria said loudly, making sure nearby shoppers could hear. "Still employed, I see. I'm surprised they kept you after your disaster of a service." Maya's hands tightened on her shopping basket. "Excuse me, ma'am. I'm just trying to shop." "I'm just trying to shop," Victoria mimicked cruelly. "Do you know how pathetic you sound? And those shoes, did you steal them? I can't imagine they pay you enough to afford anything decent." A few people had stopped watching. An older woman frowned disapprovingly, though whether at Victoria or Maya was unclear. Maya's voice was quiet but steady. "I didn't steal anything. If you'll excuse me. People like you always take shortcuts. Always looking for handouts. My taxes probably pay for your food stamps. I don't receive assistance. I work for everything I have." Maya's voice didn't rise, but something in her eyes flashed, finally a hint of anger. "And I've never treated another human being the way you treat people. So maybe I'm richer than you in the ways that actually matter." She walked away before Victoria could respond, leaving the older woman stifling a smile. But Victoria's face had gone red. That girl, that insignificant low-class girl, had dared to suggest she was better? The humiliation was unbearable. Victoria made a decision. If she couldn't go back to La Rosa Dorada, she'd make sure Maya Torres didn't work there much longer either. Scene 9. Second and third gifts. The groceries appeared on Maya's doorstep on a Thursday evening. 3 bags full of fresh vegetables, good cuts of meat, whole grain bread, milk, eggs, coffee, even fresh flowers. A card was tucked into one bag. "Nourishment for body and soul. You deserve both." Maya stood in the hallway, staring at the bags in disbelief. Her neighbor, Mrs. Chun, poked her head out. "Someone left those about an hour ago. Nice-looking delivery man. Very professional. Did he say who sent them? No, honey. Just checked the apartment number and left them. That weekend, Maya's electricity bill, which she'd been dreading because she was short $40, was mysteriously paid. The notification came via email. Your account has received a payment from an anonymous benefactor through the Community Care Fund. She called the utility company. I don't understand. What's the Community Care Fund? The representative sounded equally confused. It says here it's a charitable program, but I don't have additional details. The payment is legitimate, though. Your account is current. The following Monday, Maya arrived at work to find an envelope in her locker with $300 in cash and another note. For the medical bills that keep you up at night, you are not alone in this fight. This time Maya sat down on the locker room bench and cried. Not from sadness, but from the overwhelming relief of being seen, being helped, being valued by someone who expected nothing in return. Rosa found her there, tears streaming down her face. Maya? What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Everything's right. Someone's helping me and I don't know who and I can't thank them, and it's the most beautiful thing that's ever happened to me. Rosa hugged her, understanding without needing full explanation. Then just pay it forward someday. Help someone else when you can. Maya nodded against her shoulder, clutching the envelope like a lifeline. That night, she paid down a chunk of her mother's medical debt. The hospital billing department seemed shocked. This brings your balance below the threshold for our hardship program. The woman on the phone explained. You might qualify for additional assistance now. Elena watched her daughter hang up, saw the trembling hope in Maya's eyes. Mija, what's happening? Maya sat beside her mother's chair, took her hand. I think someone's helping us, Mama. I don't know who or why, but someone sees us. Someone cares. Elena squeezed her daughter's hand, tears in her own eyes. Maybe it's your father watching over us. Maya's father had died in a construction accident when she was 7. She barely remembered him, but she remembered her mother saying he'd been a good man, a kind man, someone who helped others whenever he could. Maybe, Maya whispered. Or maybe there's still good people in the world. Scene 10. Protagonist's small victory the next month. Something shifted at La Rosa Dorada. Mr. Webb promoted Maya to senior server, which came with a small raise and better shifts. He called her into his office personally to tell her, "You've consistently demonstrated the kind of service we value here," he said, his voice warm but professional. Kindness, reliability, grace under pressure. These qualities are rare. I want you to know they're recognized. Maya felt her throat tighten. Thank you, Mr. Webb. This means so much. You've earned it. He paused. How's your mother doing? The question surprised her. She hadn't realized he knew. She's better, actually. We got her into a clinical trial. They accepted her last week. This was true. The oncologist Marcus had quietly arranged for Elena's case to be reviewed for an experimental treatment program. The acceptance letter had arrived like a miracle: full coverage, cutting-edge therapy, real hope for the first time in years. Marcus smiled, careful to keep his expression neutral. That's wonderful news. I'm very happy for you both. After Maya left, he sat back in his chair, feeling a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with pride and everything to do with purpose. This was why he'd fought so hard to succeed. Not for fancy cars or big houses, but for the ability to change someone's trajectory with a few phone calls and some money he'd never miss. That evening, during the dinner rush, Victoria Ashford walked into La Rosa Dorada. The hostess, Rosa, paled. Mrs. Ashford. I'll check if we have availability. I have a reservation. Table 7. My usual. Rosa glanced toward the kitchen, where she could see Mr. Webb through the window. He'd seen Victoria enter. He moved toward the front, his expression carefully controlled. Mrs. Ashford, he said politely, I'm afraid we've given your regular table to another party. Perhaps we could seat you elsewhere. Victoria's eyes flashed. I have a reservation. I understand. And we'd be happy to accommodate you at table 14. I want table 7. Table 7 is no longer available as a regular reservation. Our policy is to rotate tables to provide all guests with the best experience. It was a lie and they both knew it. Marcus was quietly banning her without the satisfaction of a scene. Victoria's face reddened, but she was aware of the other diners watching. Fine, she bit out. Table 14. She was seated in a corner, the worst table in the restaurant near the kitchen doors. And when she saw who her server was, her expression curdled. Maya approached the table with her head high. Her new shoes silent on the floor. Her smile professional but not warm. Good evening. Can I start you with something to drink? Victoria stared at her, recognizing the shift. This girl wasn't broken anymore. She wasn't apologizing for existing. She was simply doing her job with quiet dignity. Water, Victoria said coldly. Of course. The meal proceeded in tense silence. Victoria searched for things to complain about but found nothing. The service was impeccable. The food was perfect. Maya was unfailingly polite, utterly professional, and completely unreachable. When Victoria left, she didn't tip. But she also didn't return. Maya watched her go, feeling something loosen in her chest. She wasn't afraid anymore. The woman who had once seemed so powerful now just seemed small. Scene 11. The sabotage, but Victoria wasn't finished. She spent the next week making calls. She knew people, restaurant critics, health inspectors, licensing board members. She couldn't get Maya fired directly. But she could create problems for La Rosa Dorada that would make keeping problematic staff difficult. She also had another plan, crueler and more direct. Victoria had a friend whose son worked in security. For $200, he provided her with something useful. Access to the restaurant's reservation and customer database through a phishing scheme that targeted the hostess's email. Victoria studied the information carefully. Then she crafted her trap. On a busy Saturday night, 3 weeks after her last visit, chaos erupted at La Rosa Dorada. A prominent food critic, someone Marcus had been courting for months, arrived for a reservation that didn't exist in the system. A party of 8 showed up to find their table given away. 2 couples discovered their credit cards had been charged for meals they never ate. The hostess, Rosa, was near tears. I don't understand. These reservations were in the system yesterday. The charges, I have no idea how those happened. Marcus pulled up the back-end system, his jaw tightening as he traced the unauthorized access. Someone had deliberately sabotaged them, creating fake reservations, deleting real ones, processing fraudulent charges. Who had system access this week? He demanded. The manager pulled up the logs. Rosa, you mean? Maya used the reservation computer twice. Once on Thursday, once on Friday. Marcus's blood ran cold. Maya wouldn't. I'm not accusing anyone. I'm just telling you who logged in. But the damage was spreading. The food critic posted a scathing thread on Twitter about the disorganization. The couples with fraudulent charges threatened to call the police. The party of 8 left angry reviews online. And in the chaos, Victoria had planted one more seed. She'd sent an anonymous email to the manager, claiming to have witnessed Maya accessing the reservation system after hours, looking suspicious. By Monday morning, Maya was called into a meeting with Marcus and the manager. Maya, Marcus began, his voice heavy. We need to ask you about the system breach this weekend. Her face went white. System breach? I don't understand. The manager leaned forward. Someone accessed our reservation and payment systems and caused significant damage. The logs show your login was used. I used the computer to check table assignments. That's all. I swear. Her voice was shaking. Mr. Webb, you know I would never. I know, Marcus said quietly. But I need to investigate this fully. Until we understand what happened, I have to put you on temporary leave. The words hit her like physical blows. Leave? But I need this job. My mother's treatment. You'll still be paid. This is just precautionary while we sort this out. Maya stood, her legs unsteady. She felt the room tilting. Felt the world she'd been carefully rebuilding start to crumble. Someone had done this to her. Someone wanted to destroy her. And she was almost certain she knew who. Scene 12. Observer steps I and Marcus waited until Maya left before turning to his manager. She didn't do this. How can you be sure? Because I know her. And because this level of system access requires knowledge she doesn't have. He pulled up the logs again, studying them with the intensity of someone who'd taught himself coding in his 20s. Look at the timestamps. Someone logged in using her credentials at 2 a.m. Saturday. Maya worked until 11 Friday night. I saw her clock out. Could she have come back? She doesn't have building keys. And look at the IP address. This access came from outside our network. Marcus made a call to a cybersecurity consultant, someone he'd worked with before. I need you here today. We've been hacked, and I need to know who did it. The consultant arrived within hours. By evening, they had traced the breach to the phishing email sent to Rose's account, which had been used to harvest login credentials. The fraudulent activity all originated from a single IP address. Marcus called in a favor with a friend in law enforcement. I need to know who owns this IP address. It's part of an active investigation into fraud. The answer came back within a day. The IP belonged to a residential address. The homeowner, Victoria Ashford's husband. Marcus stared at the information, fury building in his chest. She tried to destroy Maya's life because of a spilled glass of water. She'd committed actual crimes because her ego couldn't handle being challenged. He had two options. Go to the police or handle this privately. The first would be justified but would drag Maya through a lengthy legal process. The second would be faster but required leverage. Marcus made another call, this one to a lawyer. I need to send a cease and desist letter. And I need it to be absolutely terrifying. Scene 13. Vindication. Maya spent 3 days in her apartment, too anxious to eat, too frightened to sleep. She'd filed for unemployment, started looking for other jobs, braced herself for the possibility that her reputation had been destroyed. On the 4th day, her phone rang. Mr. Webb. Maya, can you come to the restaurant? I have information about the investigation. She arrived expecting the worst. Instead, she found Marcus in his office with the manager, the cybersecurity consultant, and a laptop showing detailed logs. Maya, sit down. I owe you an apology. She sat confused. Marcus walked her through everything they'd discovered. The phishing scheme, the traced IP address, the deliberate sabotage. This wasn't your fault. You were targeted by someone with malicious intent. We've documented everything, and we're pursuing legal action. Who did this? But even as she asked, she knew. Victoria Ashford. We have proof she coordinated the attack. Maya closed her eyes, feeling a mix of vindication and exhaustion. What happens now? Now, you come back to work with a formal apology from me and the management team. We're implementing new security protocols. And Mrs. Ashford is permanently banned from this restaurant, along with receiving a legal notice that if she continues to harass you or this business, we'll pursue criminal charges. The manager added, Maya, I'm sorry we doubted you, even for a moment. Your record here has always been exemplary. Maya felt tears starting. Thank you. I was so scared I'd lost everything. Marcus met her eyes, his expression gentle. You haven't lost anything. In fact, I'd like to talk to you about a permanent position as shift supervisor if you're interested. It comes with better pay and benefits. Ah, yes. Thank you. Yes. After the meeting, Marcus walked her out to the main dining room. The staff had been briefed on what happened. When Maya emerged, several servers broke into applause. Jorge, the bartender, had made her favorite drink, a virgin mojito, since she didn't drink. Rosa hugged her tightly. We knew it wasn't you, Rosa said. Everyone knew. Maya looked around at these people who'd become like family, at this place that had seen her at her lowest and chosen to believe in her anyway. She thought about the anonymous gifts, the mysterious help, the way her life had been shifting like tectonic plates beneath her feet. Who's been helping me? She asked Marcus suddenly. The shoes, the groceries, my mother's treatment. I know someone arranged it. Was it you? Marcus's expression didn't change. Does it matter who? Yes. Because I want to thank them. Then thank them by accepting the help. By letting yourself be lifted up. and by doing the same for someone else when you have the chance. He smiled slightly. That's the only payment required. Maya nodded slowly, understanding she wouldn't get a direct answer. Not yet, but she was beginning to suspect. And the suspicion filled her with a gratitude so large she didn't have words for it. ACT 3. Climax and Resolution Scene 14. Big reveal set up 2 months later. Marcus stood in his restaurant after closing, looking at the invitation in his hand. The Culinary Excellence Awards, a black tie event recognizing restaurants and hospitality professionals across the city. La Rosa Dorada had been nominated for 3 awards, and Marcus had been asked to present the new Hospitality Heart Award.